Welcome to another conversation as we finish the month of September. Essentially, we're finishing the first year of the Kenya Kwanza government in office. And I want to start from something I read, I think it was in the Star, an article that was done by Susan Mugwe on Rigiji. And she was talking about the danger, or she was talking about how we sometimes look at Rigiji through what she called the cocktail effect. In fact, I want to read the last part of her I want to quote the last part of her column, where she said, "Finally, my unsolicited advice to Wanjiku. A spoon can be used to stir coffee, drink soup, eat food, measure cooking ingredients, or boil heroin. All you see is a spoon, not what it does." Likewise, Rigiji is many things to many people. That is why he is presidential at the debate podium and boorish on the political soapbox. He is dexterous. He reads the room well, knows his audience. He epitomizes the perfect political pitbull. But all you've been made to see is the Rigiji through the cocktail party effect. Now you know, and she finishes with the Bible verse, Matthew 11:15, "He that has ears, let him hear." Now, the cocktail effect is a very interesting effect. Assuming you're in a party, or you're in a club, anywhere where there's loud noise. Unapiga sherehe, music is pumping, guys are talking all over the place, but you're seated somewhere with your friends, and somehow you're actually able to focus and hear what your friend is saying. Or if somebody in the next table starts saying something that is interesting, somehow you're able to cloud off all the noise and focus your attention on the person in the next table. That is what is called the cocktail effect. The ability to zero in and listen to a particular issue. It was started using these guys who control us for airplanes, and how they're able to manage all the information they're getting as they're landing and flying off planes. So it's basically the ability of every human being to focus within the noise and hear what is of interest to him. I use that as an introduction to today's conversation because Kenyans basically operate through the cocktail effect, as Susan Mugwe has said. And what I mean is this: if you read online, if you follow debates online, if you read the media, newspapers, if you listen to the television, whether it's news items or features, you're actually nearly always guaranteed to know where a particular conversation is going based on the person who's presenting it, the media house doing it, the online person, the influencer who's talking about it. I'm sure even now there are people who've already taken a position on the things that I do on this particular platform every week, and they already say, kama ni Gunjiri, and then I said he. Cocktail effect. It means you do not listen or you do not hear what is not of interest to you, and you only focus on what is of interest to you. Now, why that disturbs me a bit? I'm an eternal optimist. I've said that very, very many times. I'm the guy who sees the glass as half full every time, or even quarter full. I will not focus on what is not in the glass. I'll focus on what is in the glass. I'll focus on whatever is in the glass is going to help us with. But what worries me is that there are people who focus purely on what is not on the glass. Even if that glass was 90% full, there would still be somebody who's complaining, hawakujaza hii glass vizuri. Right? And that conversation has taken mainstream. It's become a center space in our national discourse. And I'll give you a very good example. We've just finished 1 week. In the last 1 week, I want to talk about 4 key things that happened that affect nearly all Kenyans, and one that was for political nature. The first of the 4 key things that happened is AFCON. African Cup of Nations is going to be hosted by Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the original East African states, in 2027. Big thing. For several reasons. One, it focuses attention to these 3 countries. There are people who actually travel to watch soccer. Then also it focuses the country to elevate its capacity to be able to host that kind of football, that kind of sport. So we're going to have a lot of money going into various stadia, the infrastructure for football, and there are going to be players being identified. Soccer is going to be mainstream back. And for me, especially because of the tour, my tour of duty, my first tour of duty as Member of Parliament for Nyeri Town, I focused a lot on football. And I know the effect that it has. By the time we began with very few teams in Nyeri Town in 2017, by the time I was leaving, we had 44 teams that could actually be fielded. Unfortunately, 1 year later here, most of them have collapsed. And I guess the next person, his cocktail effect is on something different. But when I think about the effect AFCON is going to have on the country, and how that this, and I talk about the people who are focusing on the negative, on the glass being half empty, nobody actually saw the need, because I follow some of those people who focus on negativity. You can't hear them speaking about this. And it's a big thing for our youth and for our sporting fraternity. The second thing was the CyberKnife, CS7. CyberKnife, the robotic machine that was unveiled by Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, that does two main things that I would like to highlight. It's a cancer treatment machine, right? And it's non-intrusive, meaning you don't get cut when you're getting treated. But even more importantly, treatment is 100% covered by NHIF. So if you're an NHIF contributor, it means you actually do not pay to access such treatment. And it is the second of its kind in the continent. The first one, I think, is in Egypt. The third thing that happened in the last week was a launch, or was a mainstreaming, because it's not really a launch. They've been happening, they've been around. The mainstreaming of community health promoters. What a lot of us call community health volunteers, community health workers. 100,000 of them were spoken to and literally just sent out by the president, I think on Monday last week, less than 7 days ago. Now the effect of these 100,000 people is that, assuming each of them ideally is supposed to be in charge of 100 homesteads, we have the capacity to reach 10 million homesteads. Assuming every homestead has an average of 3 people or 4 people, we have the capacity to affect 40 million out of 50 million Kenyans with just that one thing. Now people will say they're not doctors, they're not nurses, they're not very well educated, but you know, community health care management is about preemptive care. They will come if you're not feeling well. They talk to you about the food you need to eat, the exercise you need to take to be part of. They'll talk to you about just basically healthy living. They reduce people having to go to hospital. If we could reduce the number of people who have to go to hospital for simple ailments, by you being advised, your blood pressure is taken. If you have a chronic illness, they teach you and they talk to you about how to manage it from your home. If they could do this, they reduce the strain on our healthcare facilities, and they actually expand the health of our nation simultaneously. 10 million homes, 40 million Kenyans affected by 100,000 community health promoters that were launched on Monday by the president. That's the third thing. The fourth thing, and by the way, as I talk about this third thing, one of the things I really, really pray could be done the same way, and it already exists. I know these community health volunteers are going to be given a stipend. One of the other structures that exists in our country, that the country actually depends on, but we've never really been able to support. And when I was in Parliament as a member of the Security Committee, we really tried to think of ways about how to support them. And I hope this particular Parliament, the 13th Parliament, can come up with a plan for it. Is the Nyumba Kumi structure. The Nyumba Kumi structure is very similar to the community health promoters, because the Nyumba Kumi structure is it's a person being in charge of 10 homes, and your work is to know what is going on in those 10 homes. In case of a crime, you know where to start. When you're doing fertilizer registration, this is a structure that the national government administration depends on. If it was possible for the government to find a way of getting them a stipend as a way of thank you, because they spend a lot of their own resources doing the work that they do, this would be perfect. And if you were able to match that with the community health providers, you would, promoters, I suspect you would do an amazing job of affecting the grassroots, the bottom-up effect of uplifting our country. So community health promoters, brilliant. If we can think about Nyumba Kumi, mash them, carry them, move them together, I suspect we'll have a very, very serious effect of the bottom-up ideology. The fourth thing I want to talk about, that to some extent affects me directly, because my dad is a tea farmer, is a tea bonus that was announced this week. 44 billion shillings is a lot of money, my good people. And again, I don't know why, but the negative, the team negative, I'm not going to talk about that this week. So I want to talk about it, because one of the things this country needs are people talking positive. We have so many negative stories, and as I said last week, I don't want us to lie. If you want to focus on talking negative stories, knock yourself out. But we also need to hear positive stories, and one of the things I'm going to be doing every week is just try and focus us on true positive things that are happening, so that we can try and counter the negative things that Team Negative is pushing everywhere they are. So that was something that was really, really big. Those four things: we have the CyberKnife technology, second of its kind in the continent, been launched at KU, Teaching and Referral Hospital. The T-bonus, brilliant. Community health promoters, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And of course, AFCON, which is a sports thing, brilliant. The fifth thing, and which is what I want to finalize with, party politics. The party I'm still a member of, and don't know for how long, the Jubilee Party. I put a small advert in the newspaper, somewhere in the middle of the newspaper, where they were explaining, they gave the statement of accounts, and it was shocking. We spent 500 million shillings last year in general expenses, I think, or something like that. We had 200 million shillings in the account as of end of the financial year, which was in June of 2023, and so many other things. And sometimes I feel as if maybe this is the reason there's a big fight for this party of ours. I wonder whether, because I cannot understand. Over the last 1 year, I cannot tell you what Jubilee Party has done that would cost to spend the kind of money that was in that account. I don't know where that money has gone. And I suspect I'm not going to find someone to tell me where that money has gone, as much as I am a card-carrying stakeholder of that party. But it brings me to another party that is doing some amazing stuff. UDA had its National Governing Council meeting over the last week at the Bomas of Kenya. Around 1,500 people were there, led by the party leader, who was also the President, William Samoei Ruto, and the Deputy Party Leader, Rigathi Gachagua. Now, they talked about many things. And of course, politics being politics, not everybody is going to agree with what they talked about. I want to look at what they did outside the specifics of the meeting. First, in this country, when a president is elected, he walks away from the party that elected him until the next election. Very, very rarely. I cannot remember a president since the advent of multi-party politics who has stayed close to his party and had a meeting of his party the first year of election. So William Samoei Ruto calls up a meeting for his party and creates a timeline of what they want to do. And one of the things that they want to do, that I'm sure has scared a lot of people, is that they want to have party elections, grassroots party elections, on December the 9th, right? That is literally taking the bull by its horns. Why? Because what tends to happen in parties? Parties tend to be very fluid. You just let people associate themselves generally with a party. So you find that a lot of people who say that they are members of UDA or Jubilee or ODM or are actually not paid up members. They're not registered members. You associate yourself with that party because you associate yourself with the leadership of that party. So what UDA is doing, they want to take that association to the next step. They actually want you to be a registered member of the party and participate in the party structures over the next 4 years. Why this is scary for a lot of people is because once you start bringing Mwananchi in, and you're a councillor, MCA, you're a member of the county assembly, or you're a member of parliament, or you're a senator, or you are a governor, right? Or the president or the deputy president. And people are unhappy with you at this moment in time. What do you think is going to happen when the grassroots elections are held? Right? What do you think is going to happen? More often than not, the people you have, the people who associate themselves with your party but have a problem with how you've been working are going to give your people a rough time. I know for sure that most people who are elected are not, I'm not sure about the UDA constitution, but I'm not supposed to hold party offices at grassroots level. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. But for me, the effort and the idea of holding and tackling this issue early. I hear the president was quoted as saying the reason we need to do this now is so that when it gets messy, we deal with it in good time before the next election. Most parties wait until a few months to the next election or don't do it at all. You select, you handpick people, they become the party delegates at grassroots level, they show up for an NDC, they endorse the candidate you want, and you run. President Ruto wants to do this, or UDA party leader Ruto wants to do this now and start streamlining the party. Deputy President Rigathi said they want to build a party not just for governing, but a party that represents the bottom-up ideology for decades to come. This is a very, very strong thing. When you look at the Republican Party, when you look at the Democratic Party in America, when you look at the major parties in the first world, this is what you do, where you create a structure of how the party self-generates and motivates itself and keeps itself going out in and outside elections. And you'll be able to build a party that can actually be admired within and outside. So this is brave, very, very brave of UDA. As I said a couple of weeks ago, the fact that they came to Nyeri, opened a regional headquarters in Nyeri Town constituency was a message that all of us in Nyeri Town heard very loud and clear. I think as the days head down towards December 9th, we are going to have to make some interesting decisions, so consult. But we are consulting, we're talking to colleagues, we're talking to friends, and just wanting to find out. But UDA is making the right moves. You have to call what is right. As compared to every other party, I have watched ODM, which is the only other party that has been around for a long time. Actually, ODM has been around for a long time, but they've never been able to hold grassroots elections to date, and they're talking about close to 10 years in operation. So, I mean, the fact that UDA wants to hold them when they are in power, 1 year after they got into power, very, very brave, very, very impressive. We will be watching, we'll see how that goes. It should be something to watch. So anyway, that's all I have for this week. My primary focus, of course, is that as we move into this second year, we're going to be spending a few minutes of every show talking about the positives that have happened that week. We need to introduce positive to this negative cocktail effect. That seems to be the only thing we do. Susan Mugwe calls it political hobbyism. That Kenyans do politics as a hobby. And I associate it with how Kenyans watch football. You'll find that there are people who belong to Chelsea, whether they win or not. The people who belong to Arsenal, people who belong to Man U. And if you listen to those people, you would imagine they pay money to that club. You listen to them arguing about why they lost or how they're going to win. It doesn't follow reason. Sometimes I listen to Kenyans talking about the positions that they've taken politically. You want to ask that person, my friend, are you taking that position because it's good for you or because the party you associate with has just called this? Aren't we able to differentiate politics and realize that it affects us personally and move it from being a hobby to something we do as stakeholders? We'll keep exploring that conversation in coming weeks and months as we head to 2027, God willing. But it's an interesting thing. Susan Mugwe calls it political hobbyism. It's a spectator sport. We sit in our comfort zone and just point fingers at the people who are doing wrong, despite the fact that that wrong is affecting us, and associate ourselves with the people who are doing wrong and are comfortable about it. I do not understand. Tuko Rware, Central kama kawaida. We keep taking care of people. Pilau, nyama choma. We have accommodation. That's something people do not seem to know. We have accommodation, 27 rooms, very nice rooms, by the way, with Wi-Fi across the whole hotel. So whenever you're in Nyeri Town, please visit us. Let's take care of you. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Asante.